Welcome to Shatter.
She said it like it was nothing, like she was asking if I minded her picking the movie tonight. We were sitting in the car, her hands on the wheel, mine in my lap, window half down, city lights bleeding across the windshield. A pause in the music, and then, so my boss invited me to Dubai? Just for a few days. He doesn't want to go alone, and he asked if I'd come as his partner. Just for show. Her voice didn't crack, didn't shift, not even a glance to gauge my reaction. Just for show. She even smiled after she said it. Like the words were harmless. Like they didn't carry weight. But they did. They hit the floor of that car like a lead pipe. I turned to look at her, and in that moment, I saw everything. Not the woman I loved. Not the partner I believed in. But someone who had already made the decision. She didn't ask me if I was okay with it. She informed me. And the way she gripped the steering wheel, the way she kept her gaze fixed on the road, told me she wasn't expecting a real answer. She just wanted to feel like she'd included me. Like I was part of a decision she had made weeks ago. That wasn't a question. It was a rehearsal. And I was the last person in the audience to realize the show was already over. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't call her out. I just said, okay, and nodded. She exhaled, relieved. Like dodging a bullet. She reached for her wine cup from the console, took a sip, then turned the music back up. Like we were good again. But I wasn't good. I was done. There's a moment when something inside you shuts off. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, like a switch being flipped in an empty room. That was the night it flipped for me. It wasn't the trip. It wasn't even the fact that she'd be halfway across the world with a man who signed her paychecks. It was the casualness of it, the arrogance, the way she assumed I'd swallow it just to keep the peace. And the worst part? She was right. I did nod. I did say okay. But what she didn't see was that in that exact moment, something inside me froze. Not in anger, not in heartbreak, in clarity. She wanted permission. She needed me to be the reasonable one, the understanding boyfriend, the man who trusted her. But trust isn't blind. It's earned. And this wasn't trust. This was gaslighting, wrapped in a smile and poured over a glass of red wine. That night, I lay in bed beside her while she scrolled through hotels and flight confirmations. She didn't look guilty. She didn't even try to hide it. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft tapping of her screen. She thought I was quiet because I was processing. But I wasn't. I was detaching. She was already gone. She just hadn't packed yet. And me? I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I wasn't going to fight for scraps of honesty. Because I knew the truth. She didn't want permission. She wanted an excuse. And I'd just given it to her. I didn't bring it up again. Not the trip. Not the just for show part. Not the fact that her boss, a man she once referred to as intense but generous, suddenly needed a female companion for a corporate event in Dubai. There was nothing left to clarify. Because when someone tells you who they are, you don't argue. You listen. And I'd heard her loud and clear. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal. She was humming in the kitchen, making coffee, asking if I wanted eggs. I told her I wasn't hungry. It wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was empty. She noticed. Of course she did. You sure? She asked. You always eat breakfast. Not today. Not anymore. I had nothing to offer. And nothing to pretend. She floated through the next few days like nothing had changed. Sending me links to the kind of hotel you'd love. Telling me she'd FaceTime when she landed. Saying she'd miss me. Miss me. As if presence could be stretched across time zones. As if saying it out loud made it real. But she wasn't saying it for me. She was saying it for herself. To ease the guilt. To coat the decision in a veneer of good intentions. To make it feel like I had a choice in any of this. But the truth? She was already gone. And I had already started to disappear, too. Not from the apartment. Not from the routine. But from the role I used to play. The reliable one. The understanding one. The one who swallowed every uneasy feeling just to avoid making her uncomfortable. That man was fading. And in his place, a new version of me was waking up. Quieter, colder, but far more aware. She kept testing the temperature. Want to help me pick dresses? Think this one's too much. Would you be weirded out if I had dinner with him one-on-one? I gave short answers. Nods. A shrug. She laughed. Said I was being dramatic. Said it was just a work trip. But my silence wasn't drama. It was decision. Because when someone asks you to pretend it's normal for them to play someone else's partner, you learn to stop pretending to. At night, I stopped turning toward her in bed. Stopped reaching for her hand. Stopped asking how her day went. Not out of revenge, but because I finally accepted reality. She was leaving. Not for good. Not officially. But emotionally? She was already on the plane. And me? I wasn't chasing her through customs. I was building my exit, brick by quiet brick. There's a point when love doesn't die in fire. It just freezes. Slowly. Silently. And by the time you feel the cold, it's already too late. She left on a Thursday. Mid-morning flight. Direct to Dubai. 5-star hotel, 2 conference badges, 1 open secret. She kissed me goodbye like we were fine. A soft press of her lips against my cheek. More habit than affection. No hesitation. No second glance. Just the sound of her heels on the hallway tile and the soft click of the door closing behind her. I didn't follow her to the airport. She took a ride share. And that small choice told me everything. She didn't want the weight of my silence in the car. Didn't want to sit next to someone who remembered what her voice used to sound like when it was real. When the door shut, I stood in the hallway for a full minute. Just breathing. Just being. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but not painful. Not anymore. It felt like the first moment of honesty I'd had in weeks. No pretending. No polite nods. No illusions. Just truth. Cold and clean. She was gone. And in the absence of her voice, I finally heard mine again. I didn't rage. Didn't touch her things. Didn't scroll through her social feeds or stalk her flight path. I just sat at the table with a pen and a notepad. And I started planning. I listed everything I'd allowed her to access. Passwords. Joint accounts. Streaming services. Old files on my drive. She wasn't malicious. She wasn't a thief. But she was careless. And I'd been generous too long. So I started changing things. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Quietly. Strategically. Next, I went to the bedroom. Opened the closet. Ran a finger across the edge of the suitcases she didn't take. Looked at the dresses still on hangers. The perfume on the dresser. It all felt like evidence of a life that only one of us was still pretending to live. I didn't pack. Not yet. But I started sorting things in my mind. What was mine? What was hers? What was worth saving? And what had already lost its meaning? That evening, she texted. Simple. Short. Landed safe. Hotel's insane. He's being super professional. I responded with a thumbs up. She didn't say she missed me. And I didn't ask. I made dinner alone. Pasta, just enough for one. Didn't set the table. Didn't leave room for a second plate. I watched an old movie with the volume low. Didn't scroll my phone. Didn't wait for her messages. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. She left for a temporary fantasy. And I stayed in the silence she thought I couldn't survive. But I wasn't falling apart. I was getting ready. And when she returned, she wouldn't be coming back to the man she left. Because I wasn't there anymore. Not for her. Not for this. And soon. Not for this place either. She messaged me the next morning. Just finished the morning panel. Boring. Pool looks amazing though. Miss you a little. Face-blowing kiss. I stared at the screen. Let the message sit there. Didn't reply right away. Not because I wanted to punish her. But because I didn't feel like it. And for once, that was enough reason. Later, I typed just one word. Cool. No punctuation. No emoji. Nothing extra. And with that, I began building the silence. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Over the next 2 days, she kept checking in. Like someone tapping the glass of an aquarium. Seeing if the fish was still alive. How's your day? Sleep okay? Want me to bring anything back? Each time, I responded. But only just enough to technically qualify as communication. Fine. Yeah. No. And slowly, she noticed. Because people always notice the absence of warmth before they notice the absence of words. She sent a selfie from the balcony. Hair windblown, city skyline behind her. No caption, just the image. Before, I might have said she looked beautiful. I might have asked how the weather was or what the view looked like from her side. This time, I didn't respond at all. I didn't know her curiosity anymore. Instead, I spent those days resetting everything. I created a new email. Moved some of my savings into a private account. Changed my cloud storage password. Not because she'd ever abused access, but because access itself was no longer deserved. I updated my phone's facial recognition. Removed her fingerprint from the home security app. Disabled shared location. It wasn't an act of war. It was the quiet reclaiming of peace. By the third night, she called. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. She tried again an hour later. I picked up, kept it short. She asked how I was. I said I was fine. She said the trip had been surprisingly professional. I said, that's good. She laughed, said I was acting weird, asked if I was mad. I told her I wasn't. And it was the truth. I wasn't mad. I was done. The strange part was, the more I withdrew, the more she tried to close the gap, like she could sense the shift but didn't understand its source. She thought space would make the heart grow fonder, but mine had just gotten quieter and sharper. She'd gone searching for clarity on another continent, and in her absence, I'd found mine. You don't need betrayal to break a bond. Sometimes, all it takes is one person forgetting the weight of what they're asking, and the other realizing they're done carrying it. By the time she landed back in the States, my world was already shifting. Not dramatically, not publicly, but methodically. She thought she'd come home to a man holding space for her, to comfort, to routine, to normal. But normal had left the building, and in its place was clarity. Cold, patient, surgical. The first thing I did was start moving money. We never shared full finances, but there were overlaps. Autopays, streaming services, the occasional subscription she forgot I funded. Gone. Every single one. I opened a new account, moved half my savings into it, changed my direct deposit, cut the credit card she had a copy of. No announcement, no warning, just subtraction. She texted from the airport. Landed early. Can't wait to sleep in my own bed. I replied. Cool. Let me know when you're on the way. No emoji. No, missed you. Just logistics. Because that's all we were now. A logistics problem. And I'd already solved it. I spent the evening going through my devices. Laptop, phone, tablet. Cleared shared access. Logged out of cloud backups. Her name used to be everywhere. Tied to calendar reminders, shared playlists, saved passwords. Now it was disappearing bit by bit, like she'd never existed inside my system. I also stopped using the bedroom, moved into the guest room, took my books, a lamp, a chair I actually liked. She didn't know it yet, but I was practicing something. Distance, not out of spite, but preparation. Because when someone makes you feel replaceable, you start treating them like a temporary visitor in a space they never truly valued. That night, she called again. Wanted to talk before her flight home. Said she felt a little off. Said she had weird energy the past few days. I let her talk. Didn't interrupt. Didn't reassure. I said, you'll feel better once you're back. And I meant it. Because she'd feel the change the moment she walked through the door. I wasn't angry. Wasn't bitter. I was focused. And that's more dangerous than any raised voice could ever be. Because focused men don't yell. They leave. I started journaling. Every detail. Not for evidence, but for memory. I didn't want to forget what it felt like to stand in that quiet apartment, knowing she was across the world laughing with a man who held her arm like it was his, even if just for show, even if strictly professional. Intentions don't erase the insult, and pretending doesn't neutralize impact. By the time she got back, I wasn't holding space. I was folding it shut, not cruelly, just finally, because I wasn't her anchor anymore. I was the exit, and she didn't even realize she was walking toward it. She came home on a Sunday, late flight, scent of airport perfume still clinging to her clothes, a rolling suitcase and a smile she tried to dial down into something casual, like this was normal, like nothing had cracked. Hey, she said, standing in the doorway, keys in one hand, takeout bag in the other. I brought Thai. Thought you might be hungry. I wasn't. I stood in the kitchen, rinsing out a mug. Didn't move toward her. Didn't kiss her hello. Didn't even ask how the trip went. Just said, you're back. She blinked at the cold in my voice, like she wasn't sure what version of me she was talking to. She set the bag down on the counter, unzipped her jacket, started unpacking the trip like it was small talk. It was fine. Hot. Busy. Really boring, actually. Super corporate. I nodded once. Good for you. That's when she paused, tilted her head, smiled too wide. Don't worry. It was very official. I didn't even have time to go shopping. I didn't laugh. Didn't feed the performance. Just looked at her and said, I didn't ask. And the way her smile cracked, like porcelain under pressure. That was the first time she really felt it. The shift. The fracture. The distance. She tried to play it off. Tried to roll her eyes like I was being moody. Okay, I get it. You're mad I went. But it wasn't a big deal. I didn't answer. I just walked past her. Because when someone explains something you didn't ask about, they're not talking to you. They're talking to themselves. And she was starting to realize she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. That night, we didn't sleep in the same room. She came into the guest room around midnight, asked if I was okay, said the bed felt too big without me. I told her I was fine where I was. She stood in the doorway for a while, waiting for me to change my mind, waiting for softness. I turned off the lamp. The next morning, she tried again, made coffee, wore one of the old t-shirts she knew I liked, played music in the kitchen like she used to. And when I walked in, she smiled like it was all normal. Morning. I thought we could maybe have breakfast together. I poured my coffee in silence, took a sip, and walked out. She was expecting repair, but she came home to demolition. Because when you abandon someone emotionally, you don't get to walk back in and expect the furniture to be in the same place. Everything had been moved, rearranged, redefined, and now she was the guest. She spent the next few days pretending nothing had changed, cooking meals we used to eat, turning on shows we once watched together, lighting candles like that could mask the silence. It was all choreography, familiar motions, but the music was gone, and I wasn't dancing anymore. She asked if I wanted to go out Friday night, said it might be good for us. Dinner, drinks, a change of pace. I told her I had plans. With who, she asked. No one, I said. Just myself. That was the moment her smile finally cracked. Not broken, not crumbled, just cracked. A hairline fracture in the image she'd been selling to herself. Because deep down, she still thought she had time. That this was just a phase. A sulk. A man licking his wounds. But I wasn't hurt. I was gone. At dinner, she set 2 plates. Poured 2 glasses of wine. Waited for me to join her. I didn't. I ate at the counter, standing. Washed my plate. Left hers untouched. She called it cold. Said I was punishing her. But silence isn't punishment. It's response. Measured. Earned. That weekend, I went to the gym every morning before she was up. Came back. Showered. Worked in the guest room with the door closed. She passed by a few times. Knocked once. I didn't answer. She texted from the living room. Are we okay? I replied. We're honest. She tried again that night. Put on a movie she thought I liked. Ordered takeout from our old favorite place. Wore the hoodie I gave her 2 Christmases ago. The one she hadn't touched in months. She curled up beside me on the couch. Close, but not touching. Waiting. Testing. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Halfway through the film, she leaned her head toward my shoulder. Paused. Waited. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured another drink. Didn't look back. That was when she really began to notice the difference. Not the space. Not the silence. The absence. I wasn't pulling away. I was already too far to reach. The thing people forget is, by the time a man stops fighting, he's not tired. He's done. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's realized the caring wasn't mutual. It was maintenance. Effort. One-sided. And now the cost wasn't worth the effort. She thought routine would fix it, that if she mimicked what worked before, the connection would return. But she was performing nostalgia, and I was living in reality. She was playing house, and I was packing the foundation in my head. She cornered me in the hallway. No music playing, no smile rehearsed. Just her, standing there in one of my old shirts, arms crossed tight over her chest like she was bracing for impact. Are you avoiding me? I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Not like a man looks at the woman he loves. Not even like someone looking at someone they used to love. Just plainly. Then I said, no, I'm not avoiding you. I just understand you now. That silence, the one that followed, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even painful. It was final. She opened her mouth to speak, probably to deflect, minimize, spin it into a misunderstanding. But I walked past her before she could. That was the night the cold became obvious. Not just felt. Seen. Spoken. She didn't sleep in the bedroom that night. Neither did I. 2 people in the same house. Living on opposite sides of a line that had already been drawn months ago. We just hadn't said it out loud. Until now. She tried again the next morning. Made pancakes. Played soft jazz like it was some kind of relationship defibrillator. I poured my coffee in silence. Didn't sit. Didn't take a bite. You can't just shut down like this, she said finally, voice trembling just a little. I met her eyes. Held the stare for 3 long seconds. You're right. I should have done it sooner. That was when her eyes changed. Like she finally caught up to where I'd been living for weeks. Like she realized this wasn't a cold front. This was a new climate. There were no more long messages, no more selfies, no more attempts to soften the air between us. Instead, she moved quieter, careful, like she didn't want to break what little was left. But what she didn't know was that it was already broken, not smashed, not shattered, just done. She asked me one night, softly, like she was afraid of the answer. Is this about Dubai? I shook my head. It's about everything that came before it. And the fact that you thought Dubai would be the final straw, when really it was just the echo. She went quiet after that. Because how do you argue with an echo? How do you fight silence that isn't mad? Just finished? She started staying out later. Or maybe she just didn't bother telling me where she was. I didn't ask. She tried on distance. Thought maybe she could wear it better than me. But hers looked like deflection. Mine looked like peace. And that was the difference. She was waiting for a blow-up, a confrontation, a cry for help. But all I gave her was stillness. And that scared her more than anything I could have said. Because she didn't lose me in a fight. She lost me in the quiet. It was a Tuesday when I started packing. Not a dramatic evening. No fight. No final insult that pushed me over the edge. Just stillness. She had gone to bed early. Lights off in the bedroom. Fake peace. Fake routine. And I stood in the guest room with a half-zipped duffel bag, folding only what mattered. Not everything. Just enough. Because when you've already left in your mind, the body is just a formality. The next morning, she saw the bag. Didn't say anything at first. Just stared at it like it wasn't real. Then came the shake in her voice. What is this? I didn't look up. It's what you never expected. Me choosing myself. She laughed. That nervous, high-pitched kind of laugh people use to soften panic. Come on. Is this about that trip? It was just Dubai. Just for work. You know that. I zipped the bag slowly. You called it. Just for show. But what I gave you, that was never for show. She stepped closer, voice rising. I don't understand. We're just in a rough patch. You're really gonna throw everything away over one decision? I stood, met her eyes. And that's when I said it. You made that decision. You just hoped I'd live with it. Silence. She blinked, waiting for the out, waiting for the fight, waiting for me to break character and beg for the version of us that was already gone. But I didn't, because I wasn't playing the role anymore. I wasn't reading from a script I didn't write. You're not serious, she whispered. I grabbed the bag. You said it was pretend. You played the part. Now you're alone on the stage. She followed me to the door. No screaming. No tears yet. Just disbelief. Because for the first time, she couldn't talk her way back in. Couldn't twist the narrative. I wasn't cold. I was calm. And that's what made it so final. Where are you even going? I smiled, just slightly. Somewhere I don't feel like a prop in someone else's show. I opened the door. Stepped out. Closed it behind me. Didn't slam it. Didn't lock it. Because I didn't need to. That door would never open for me again. And I didn't want it to. She texted that night. Once. I'm sorry. Please. Can we just talk? I left it on read. The next morning, 3 more. I didn't mean for it to feel like that. I thought you were okay with it. Please don't throw us away. But I didn't throw us away. She did. When she made me an afterthought. When she asked me to co-sign her absence. And smile like I didn't see it for what it was. The silence grew. Thick. Permanent. Sharp at the edges. She called a few mutual friends. They called me. I didn't answer them either. Because this wasn't about a conversation. This wasn't about closure. It was about freedom. Mine. She tried to spin it, at first. To others. Said I was emotional. That I overreacted. But overreactions don't sound like stillness. They don't move out without shouting. They don't change passwords, reroute accounts, and vanish with zero mess. No, this wasn't rage. It was release. She showed up once. 3 days later. Stood outside the building like a stranger. Tried the buzzer. I ignored it. Watched her from upstairs. Alone. No makeup. Hair tied back like she was hoping to look smaller. She waited. 40 minutes. Then left. No note. No drama. Just the weight of reality finally sinking in. She sent one last message that night. You really left. I didn't think you would. I thought we were stronger than this. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. But because nothing I said would have changed what she'd already killed. You don't owe closure to someone who practiced detachment like a language and only panicked when you became fluent. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. I never heard from her again. Not directly. A friend mentioned she'd moved. Back near her sister. Driving a different car. Looking tired. And when someone asked her about me at a dinner party, she apparently just said, "He just disappeared." That's not true. I didn't disappear. I withdrew. Quietly. Completely. Because she told me, in 1,000 subtle ways, that I wasn't necessary anymore. So I made her words real. She told her boss I'd been jealous, that I couldn't handle her ambition. But it was never about the trip. It was about the choice. The framing. The way she said, just for show. Like my presence was optional. And my discomfort was inconvenient. She thought pretending was harmless. Now she pretends I still care. No rage. No return. Just a shadow where I used to be. And an empty silence. She'll never stop trying to fill. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.